With all that being said, though, if you got your Bible with you, you can turn to Genesis chapter 32, verse 24. And as you're turning there, you can if you're taking notes, you can write this down. The title of this message is Don't Let Go. Don't let go. Look at somebody next to you. So you guys already said it. I love it. Look at somebody next to you and say, I'm going to give you this, and I don't want you to let it go. I don't want you to let it go. Some of you are like, what are you giving me? All right, maybe they're going to give you money, take you to lunch afterwards. Who knows? Maybe you got a good friend next to you. But don't let go. And, you know, something I've discovered in life is life by itself is very interesting. Let's start there. I've been saying it a lot lately, but sometimes life just be lifing. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I saw someone yesterday. I met him for the first time. I was like, how's life lately? They were like, life is lifing. And I was like, that's crazy. Someone that's never been to our church used that phrase. But sometimes life just be lifing. And whether that's good, whether that's bad, a mountain or a valley or somewhere in between. But what I've discovered about life is in the same way life has moments of peace and moments of victories. How many know life has a whole lot of battles in this world? There's a lot of battles that we go through. And what I've discovered about the battles, sometimes the hardest battles aren't the ones that we lose, but the hardest battles are the ones that never actually end. It's the battle that keeps on going. It's the diagnosis that hasn't gotten better. It's that relationship that is still crazy with the holidays still around the corner. Anybody know what I'm talking about? All right. It's the bank account that still isn't working like a bank account should. All right. It's the kids that are still being kids. It's life just being life. And I think what's exhausting about that isn't always the pain of that situation, but it's actually understanding the sovereign God that rules over that situation. If you haven't noticed yet today, I'm coming for the pain in your life, all right? But in a good way. Because for me, sometimes what's exhausting is not the struggles I'm constantly going through, but it's understanding the God that's supposed to be over my struggles. Anybody resonate with me today? Am I preaching to the choir on this one? Okay, I see a lot of nodding heads. And I'll be honest, sometimes when I'm wrestling in life, some of my biggest wrestling matches aren't actually the devil, but it's actually the Lord. And it's not the Lord because I'm trying to prove a point or get him to do what I want, but I'm wrestling with this understanding that God is a good God, but I'm still going through a horrible situation. God is a good God, but my spouse isn't here today because they died of cancer 5 years ago. God is a good God. I raised my kids in the house of the Lord, and they're downtown in jail because they wilding out a little too hard. God is a good God, but life sometimes isn't good. And sometimes is it not just good, but it just doesn't change. I'm wrestling with this concept of God. Why didn't you do what you said you were going to do? And listen, I'm not angry at God. I'm not even saying you're angry at God because you're wrestling with God. But you're saying, God, why didn't you do what you said you do when you knew and I knew that you could do something? Or God, why did you let this happen in my life when I knew that you could stop it? Or God, why are you still letting this hurt of what happened 10 years ago still be in the corridors of my mind when I know that you were actually there? And maybe for you, you're in that season and you haven't left God, you haven't quit God, but if you're honest today, you're still wrestling with God. And can I tell you, if that's you today, you're in the right place. Because that is all of us in any season of life. Anybody can testify about that you've wrestled with God about some stuff? And if that's you, I want to encourage you today because this message is going to speak right to your soul. But to understand the message and the story we're talking about, we got to get the history, because to understand the history is to actually have the proper context. And today in this story, we're going to get introduced to a familiar character I imagine you've heard before, a guy by the name of Jacob. And Jacob is very interesting because his name means deceiver, all right? And if your name is Jacob in the room today, I'm sorry, I'm not coming for you. I'm not calling you a deceiver. I'm just telling you what the name means, all right? Little fun story, I got 3 younger brothers. Whenever I was growing up, my youngest brother, his name is Camden, and they almost named him Cameron. They told us it was Cameron, and then my mom said, hey, we're not naming your brother Cameron anymore. I said, why is that? They said, we just learned Cameron means crooked nose, and we don't want him to have a crooked nose, all right? And I was like, that's crazy. And then I met a Cameron in high school. Guess what? He had a crooked nose, all right? So listen, just be careful what you name your kids, okay? So anyways, so if your name's Jacob, no shade. But Jacob means deceiver. And what's interesting is Jacob, not only was that his title and his name, but it actually was the name that he was living up to. He really was a deceiver. And Jacob had a brother by the name of Esau. Everybody say Esau. So we had Jacob, we had Esau. And does anybody remember what their father's name was? Isaac. Let's go, Bible people. So we have Isaac, who is the father of Jacob and Esau. And Esau was the manly man, always going out cooking, hunting, just living out in wild. And Jacob was more of like a DIY, Etsy, at home, kind of knit a sweater, hang out there. That's all cool. I'm down with that. I love sweater knitting, all right? Not good at it, but I'm down to try, okay? Now, Jacob wanted to have the blessing of Esau because Esau was the firstborn. And in Old Testament, what we see before the time of Jesus, the best blessing went to the firstborn. I'm a firstborn in my family of brothers, so I really like that, okay? That's great, all right? So for me, that's good. But what I love is because of Jesus in the New Testament, come on somebody, he is the firstborn, and whoever gives their life to him, you're weaved in with him. So guess what? You are not the tail, but you are actually the head. You're not the leftover, but you are the firstborn. So the firstborn blessing of the Father is the firstborn blessing for you. Anybody thankful for the blood of Jesus today? Man, that's just a bonus appetizer on the side right there. That's good stuff, all right? And so Jacob wanted this blessing, so he was a mama's boy. He got this whole thing set up with his mama. He went in a costume where he was all like wearing red fur, and he showed up, and Isaac couldn't see, and he's like, is that my son? Who is it? And he's like, it's Esau. It's Esau. And he walks in, and then what Isaac does is pray a prayer of blessing upon him, and he takes the first blessing for himself, all right? Well, if you know anything about siblings, you're not going to take what's supposed to be mine and live to see the next day. Like, you touch my toy, I'm going to grab my toy back from you, I'm going to hit you with my toy, and I'm going to take it, all right? So Esau showed up. He realized what Jacob did, and he said, we're not doing this. He said, I'm going to kill him, and so Jacob ran away. Story goes on from there. They're both living out their lives. Jacob is getting blessed like crazy, but then all of a sudden, he gets news that Esau has figured out where he is at and is coming for him. Oh, my word. I don't know if you've ever had somebody looking for you before, and then they actually find you. Woo, that's terrifying, all right? Anyway, so because of this, Jacob sets up this whole situation where he's like, all right, I'm going to bless my brother, and I'm going to divide my huge caravan of thousands of people. I'm going to send a good portion first, and they're going to say, hey, your brother loves you. He's for you. We're here to serve you. Forget about the blessing stealing, all right? He's like, and then I'll send another caravan that'll have my family, so he knows, like, I'm there, and once they all get there, I'll finally go by myself, okay? Very odd plan. He's like, I'll send everyone else, and if it works out, then I'll go, okay? So anyways, so that's what he's doing. So this whole moment happens, and Jacob is finally by himself, the deceiver, in the camp, and it's in that moment we enter into this story the night before Jacob is about to see Esau in Genesis chapter 32, verse 24. And it says, this left Jacob all alone. Somebody say all alone. You feel alone today? I don't know about you. I've been in rooms with tons of people. I've been at family dinners. I've been hanging out with my best friends. And I still have felt all alone. You don't have to be all alone just by yourself. You can be in a room this big, everybody know your name, and still feel all alone. But I love that we serve a God that doesn't wait till we feel good to make us know he is good. But he'll find us in our loneliest places and make us aware of him. So Jacob's all alone, and he's in the camp, and it says, a man came and wrestled with him until the dawn began to break. I don't know about you, but I hear that verse, and I go, time out. We need a little bit context. So you're telling me Jacob is all by himself, and then all of a sudden, this random Joe Blow just walks into the tent and just starts wrestling him? Like, think about this for a second. Not only did they fight, we know they fight, but how did the fight start? Like, did like Jacob see him across the distance? Did they like walk by each other and just kind of like throw some shoulders? Like, did somebody come up and say something about somebody's mama, or maybe just gave somebody a bad look? You ever had somebody give you a bad look before? Then you question them about it, and they're like, I really can't even see what's going on right now. Like, what actually happened that led to this moment? And not only did that make me have a question, but then I thought, how did they wrestle all night long? Like, if you go to a title fight for a boxing match, there's going to be 12 rounds. Does anyone know how long those rounds go? 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the division. 3 to 5 minutes. That is what the championship fights are doing. But it says they wrestled all night long. And I began to think about this in my own life. I don't know, but for those of you who have kids in the room, have you ever wrestled your kids before? Dads, you know what I'm talking about? Like, you get down on the floor, you start wrestling your kids. It sounds like a great idea, but you get 5 minutes in, and all of a sudden, they are doing bunny hops on top of your neck. And you're just beginning to negotiate. You're like, if you get off of me, then you can get some chocolate. You can watch something later, like this whole moment. And then 7 minutes in, you're wondering, why am I exhausted? Why do my knees not work anymore? And my lower back is going out. That happens to me after 7 minutes of wrestling a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. Can you imagine how exhausted Jacob felt after wrestling all night? Whew. Here's my question. How exhausted do you feel right now because of all the wrestling that you've been doing? Some of you have been wrestling for decades. Some of you have been wrestling for years. Some of you have gone on vacation only for your mind to kick into overdrive and wrestle that you got back and were more tired than when you actually went. I don't know if you've ever gone on vacation with that person. Have you ever gone on vacation with a person where you're at the vacation, they have to plan to detail the next vacation? And you're like, just relax for a second. Like, just let me have my non-alcoholic pina colada and enjoy the pool for a second. Man, get off me. Man, you ever had that happen? It says that Jacob is fighting all day. He's exhausted. But listen, not only is he exhausted, but I imagine your story can relate. He wasn't just exhausted, but it actually got worse. You ever been so exhausted, thought, it can't get any worse than this, and then what happens? It gets worse. You're like, I didn't even know this much chaos was possible. I didn't even know my body could be broken this bad. I didn't even know people could act this crazy. You ever had no money in your life and still had people steal money from you? I've had that happen. You're like, how am I in that much debt? I didn't even have money to get in debt in. Man, I have had that happen. Or maybe you haven't done something. You just living your own life, doing your own thing. You run into the crowd and they're like, well, we heard what you said and what you did. You're like, what? I said what I did. I was at home in my PJs watching Netflix. I wasn't with them. I wasn't at that party. I wasn't at that situation. I don't even know. Who's Betty? I don't know no Betty. People start talking. You ever been exhausted and then the situation got worse? That's exactly what happened to Jacob. It says in 32, verse 25 through 26, it says, and when the man that was wrestling him saw that he could not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it, pops, rips it out of socket. Then the man said, let me go, for dawn is breaking. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless, somebody say unless. I pray you get an unless in your exhaustion today. I pray you get an unless in your attitude today. I pray you get a gentleness of unless in your spirit. I pray that you say, unless you bless me, I will not let you go. We got to pause and catch that right there. The man couldn't overthrow Jacob's exhausted wrestling. Some of you are wrestling right now through life. You're exhausted. You're saying, is there any value? Could it be that the exhaustion that you have doesn't dictate the blessing you can get? Could it be that how tired you are doesn't dictate how true God can still be in your life? Could it be that it's not based on you, but it's based on someone that is greater than you? This is the power of worship. This is the power of coming together as saints to realize I am not God. I am not control, but my eyes, my hands, my voice, my breath is fixed on the one that is. Man, that's the power of perspective. And it says that because he couldn't overthrow the man touched his hip and dislocated it with one touch. Think about this. What type of man wrestles you for hours, can't beat you, but then all of a sudden with 2 fingers goes pop and dislocates your whole hip? The man couldn't overpower him all night, but then he does one little touch and blows his hip out of socket. And think about this now. Jacob is standing there, holding on, exhausted, now just dragging his lip like a dead iguana that's stuck in your fender. You've seen that on 95. Like he's just doing that right there. And he says, I am still not letting go until you bless me. And I feel this in my soul. Some of you in the room, that's where you are right now. You're like, not only am I exhausted, you're like, my hip is blown out. I got no money in my bank account. My hair isn't even put together. I haven't brushed my teeth in 3 days, but I am still holding on. Can we just pause right there? And can you take a moment to celebrate yourself for still standing in the room when you fought through the room? We always celebrate the starting, but it's crazy how we never celebrate the staying. I've been to a lot of starting parties. The business start, the book start, the marriage start. You want to know what I've never been invited to? A we're still here party. Hey, the business started 2 years ago. It's not working out yet, but we're still here. Woo! Let's cut the cake. I've never been to that party. We love to celebrate when things start, but often we do value when things just remain. We love the beginning. We love the ending, but it's crazy where stories have the most work, the middle, we seem to actually neglect. And not only do we neglect, we can find ourselves devaluing, or dare I say, making fun of people that are still in the middle. Why don't they have their life together yet? Why are they still acting like that? Why are they still being that way? Because they're in the middle. And if you'll judge people that are in their middle, be careful, my friend, because you're actually judging yourself in your middle. For every stone you cast at one, you're bringing 10 boulders back on yourself. Not because they're throwing back at you, but you're just creating an unattainable reality people can't live up to, including yourself. But it's amazing. Jacob's sitting there. He's holding on. But think about it real quick. It says that Jacob is holding on. I gave you the answer to this at the beginning of the message. What did Jacob's name mean? Deceiver. So who is holding on? The deceiver. The deceiver is exhausted. The deceiver has a blown out hip. The deceiver is done. The wicked, evil deceiver, but is still holding on. In verse 27 says, the man says, what is your name? And what did Jacob reply with? His name, Jacob, which meant deceiver. The man has been wrestling with Jacob all night long. I imagine they've had some conversations. I imagine there was a little smack talk going back and forward. I imagine he's like, oh, you're not that strong. I imagine this is happening. But in none of that, he actually asked him about his name until the very end. But when he asked him his name, Jacob doesn't hide who he is. He doesn't apologize for who he is. He just says, hey, I'm Jacob, the deceiver. I don't know if you've noticed this, but have you ever gone to the doctor before, urgent care, or the hospital? And you can be in pain at a level 15 on a 1 to 5 scale. And what's the first thing they do when they walk into the room? They don't ask you where your pain is. They ask you, what's your name? What's your name? And I don't know if you've ever been to the ER, but they ask you what your name is at every room you go to. And I've had the same nurse come see me 12 times in a row. And every time she walks into the room, go, what's your name? And I'm like, sis, you are concerning me right now. Because if you don't know my name after 6 hours of being together, we got a problem. And that may not be my IV bag. And she's like, sir, I know what your name is. It's a weird name, Chancellor Dix. Well, I got it. She's like, but I need to know for the chart and for the information. Why? The reality is they don't need to know my name just to know my name, but they need to know the name to identify the one that's carrying the problem. Realize this, God here wasn't asking Jacob because he was lacking information. He was asking Jacob for a loving confession. He wasn't saying, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're going through. Can you tell me? He's like, no, I see you. I know you. I knit you together in your mother's womb. But I just want to ask you, who are you? What's your name? Friend, write this down. Healing starts where pretending stops. All that just to get there. Healing starts where pretending starts. God can't bless the pretend you. God can't heal the fake you. He said, Jacob, who are you? He's like, bro, I'll be honest. I'm a deceiver. I'm a liar. I'm a failure. This goes all the way back to the garden. Remember the garden after sin, Adam and evil? God shows up and what does he say? Adam, where are you? Where are you? He's literally looking for him. He's just looking around. He's like, where are you? And why? Not because he didn't know where Adam was. It was his garden. He knew what was taking place in his garden. But he wanted Adam to know and ask, do you actually know where you are? Because I've been here the whole time. I've never forgot. I've never left. I've never forsake. But you've got shame right now. You've got hurt. You're exhausted. You've got pain. You're trying to isolate. So I'm asking you, where are you? Some of the best thing that you could do in the morning is wake up, look in the mirror before you go, and ask yourself, where are you? And if your spouse isn't with you in church today, inform them of why you're asking that before you do that, or they may be concerned in the morning when you're getting ready. But you could just ask yourself, where are you? Where are you right now? How's your soul? You good? You just showing up to church? You barely keeping it together? Are you good? You still following your dreams? You still fighting? Are you good? Like, where are you? What is going on? Is God still a part of your story? And realize this. That is, God is asking them this. It's not to shame him. The man wasn't shaming him, but he's actually freeing him. And here's why. Honesty always comes before the blessing. Honesty isn't where it keeps you bound. Honesty is actually where blessings start. And can I just give you some freedom today in your soul? Some of you need to start being honest about your story. Some of you need to start saying, man, I'm depressed. And God, I don't know how to be depressed. God, I'm struggling right now with this addiction, and I like it, and I actually don't want it to go away. God, I'm full of anxiety right now and worry. God, I am so mad. I am so bitter. God, I'm struggling with my identity. I'm struggling with my sexuality. I'm struggling with my drug addiction. I'm struggling with my drinking. I'm struggling with my habit. God, I am struggling with life. And so many times we'll gather together as the church, and we'll just have our best suit. We'll have our best foot forward. People will be like, how are you doing? And you're like, oh, I'm blessed and highly favored. And in reality, you're like, I'm broken and freaking out. But you don't feel like you can say that. Because if God figured out who I really was, what I really desired, would he still love me? And it's crazy in this story, we see that Jacob, the deceiver, is exhausted. He's broken. He's busted. He says, what is your name? And he's like, this is who I am. And God goes, oh, that's who you were, but it's not who you're going to be. Once you're honest with God, you don't have to remain who you were, but you get to step into an identity that is new of who you're actually called to be. See, because what takes place in chapter 32, verse 28, he goes, no, bro. Your name will no longer be Jacob. The man told him, from now on, you will be called Israel because you have fought with God and with men and have won. Could it be the fight that you are in right now is not only the fight for your faith, but it's the fight for the identity of your new life? You're fighting for the legacy of your kids. You're fighting for the legacy of your family. You're fighting for the legacy of your story. You're fighting for the legacy of your city. You are fighting for a legacy. And guess what? The legacy won't just overpass you. It'll still be a part of you. Jacob is given a new name. And what's that name? Israel. Listen, my friend, your struggle doesn't disqualify you. Your struggle is actually what qualifies you. Some of you feel like your struggle is why you can't get ahead in life. Bro, you need to catch me today. Your struggle is the very ammo and foundation that's going to set you up in life. Your rejection has taught you what a no feels like you don't need, so you can step into a yes you do need. Let me make it practical. You saw the attitude of the people that said no and what was behind the no. So now once you start getting favor, you start getting money, you start getting blessing, you'll have people that'll tell you yes, but you'll say, hold on a second. This yes is a sheep that's actually a wolf. Why? Because you're saying yes with your lips, but you still carry the personality and the heart of the no. Ooh, I'm not going with you there. See, they didn't want you when they were nobody, but now they want you when you're somebody. That person didn't want to be in a relationship with you until you got yourself together, till you got a job, sis, that they could never find with their broken, busted degree. And now he's like, oh, baby, you be my boo thing. I'll take you forever. And then you go out to eat, and you're still paying. The things that we think we struggle with that disqualify us are the very things that qualify us to walk in what God has for us. And so he says to him, your name will be Israel. And watch this. Jacob's worst night became one of the best nights of his life because God changed his name. And Jacob knew this to such a degree. In Genesis chapter 32, verse 30, it says, so Jacob called the place Peniel. Peniel, what does that mean? It means face of God. Jacob looked at this man. He looked at this normal situation, this bum situation, and he said, this isn't ordinary. This is extraordinary. And so Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, it is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared. I went through the struggle. I went through the fight. I went exhausted. I went busted, and I am still here. And what did he realize in that moment? He realized that the one he was wrestling with was God. The one that he was fighting with was God. The one that dislocated his hip was God. But watch this. The one that blessed him was God. The one that redeemed the story was God. The one that was in the situation in the middle of the night but brought dawn and new mercies in the morning was God. He knew. And because of that, this is God. And some of you have been wrestling for months, and maybe it's been years, and you felt alone, and you have felt silent, and you've been wondering, where is God? But what if, just like Jacob, you didn't actually recognize who you were wrestling with? What if you didn't realize it was actually God? And what if it wasn't just actually God, but you thought you were holding on to God the whole time? But what if God has been holding on to you the whole time? What if he's been there the whole time and you didn't realize that? Listen, I've learned a lot in a little bit of time about God. And very simply, it's this. He's the one that keeps all things together. He's the one that's doing this thing. He's the one raising my kids. He's the one loving my wife. He's the one helping me with my finances. He's the one helping me lead this church. He's helping me just be a man. It is always on God. And this is what's fascinating about this story. Because in this story, we see something called a theophany. Everybody say theophany. And theophany is an example when in the Old Testament, Jesus Christ himself shows up. We see this when it comes to the three boys that are thrown into the fire. It says that when the king looked, that there was a fourth man there that shined with the brightness of heaven. And that bright man was Jesus Christ himself. And what we believe here and what we know is that when Jacob is wrestling, he's not just wrestling with a man, he's not just wrestling with an angel, but he is wrestling with Jesus Christ himself. Before Jesus ever showed up on the scene, as we know, he has always existed, and he chose to wrestle with Jacob. Before he touched the blind eyes, he touched Jacob's hip. And literally, before he renamed Simon Peter and all the others, he renamed Jacob to Israel. And here's what we got to realize. Jesus has always been there. And what does that mean? That means for your story, my friend, Jesus has always been there. In your darkest night, Jesus has been there. In your suffering, Jesus has been there. In your exhaustion, Jesus has been there. When your hip has gone out, Jesus has been there. He has never left you. He has never forsaken you. And newsflash, he's not going to start. Jesus will never leave you. But he's always going to be working. But there's one more thing we have to realize while Jesus is working. In Genesis chapter 32, verse 31, Derby, you can come up here and help me just land this thing. It says, the sun rose above him as he passed Peniel, the place where he met God. But what happened? He was limping because of his hip. Lean in this today and bring your pain to the forefront of your mind. I want to help us walk today. Notice the sun rose, and what do we see? The night, the wrestling, it was over. And the morning brought the new dawn. And what do we know about scriptures? His mercies are new each morning. He has daily bread for us, that the best is yet to come. And it says Jacob got up with a new name, with a new song in his heart, with new purpose in his life. And he took that first step knowing the day is ahead. And then there was a limp. But God, you're with me. You'll never leave me. You'll never forsake me. You're a good God. Walking in the newness of the day, but still carrying the limp of the night. Jacob walked away blessed, but with a limp. You've restored my family, but we still got scars. You healed my body, but I can't eat that food anymore. You fixed my relationship, but sometimes we still fight and yell. Walking blessed, but still walking with a limp. And this is part of the sermon where we go, but I thought it was supposed to be, it's all blessed. Like everything's back to normal. The best is yet to come. And Derby and Stanley come and they play something real loud and we feel it and we like go out there and run and walk. But here we see, no, Jacob gets blessed greater than ever before. But he actually walks with a limp that he never had before. Jacob saw the face of God, the very thing that many of us have asked for in our prayer closet. And he walked away with a limp because of it. You know, this is my wedding ring, and I rarely ever take this thing off. And what's crazy, though, is even when I take this off, you know exactly where it would go because there's a mark on it. Because I've been so connected to this thing for 12 years and 3 weeks. Come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. We had so much fun. We made 2 babies. Come on, somebody. I'm not going to be here in 3 weeks because it's our anniversary. Come on, somebody. But because I've been loving that girl for so long, there's been a mark that's been left. And my friend, if you walk closely with Jesus, you're going to get marked. Yo, with that mark, sorry. That mark sometimes cuts deep. God, I want you to touch me. Don't touch me like that. God, can't you restore this? He's like, no, I can't restore that because that's where I touched you. What? See, some of us are waiting for God to fix everything. You're waiting for the limp to go away, and you're like, well, once this limp goes away, then I'll be blessed. But what if the limp is actually the blessing? What if the thing that you think is holding you back is actually the thing that's standing you up? Think about Jacob every day of his life. Takes that step full of strength and then has that limp of weakness. He meets his brother. Says, yo, they get restored. Everything's well. He's like, man, I did a great job. But only because God helped me. Yo, my marriage, it's working out. But only because God taught me to forgive. I got my money right because the Lord helped me get my mind right. See, every step of strength was followed by a limp of weakness. And it wasn't just to hurt Jacob so he couldn't run, but it was to remind him actually where his strength came from. Listen, my friend, I've screamed about God from the mountains, but I've discovered my Jesus in the valleys. I've sang his praises and declared it on stages. but I've seen him face to face in the puddles in my carpet. Could it be the limp is one of the greatest things of your story? Could it be that the fight is not in vain, but it is for the purposes of God? And could it be that when you are walking with this limp, you're actually walking more like Jesus than ever before? And how do I know that? Because our Jesus came as a perfect man with no sin, with no shame, but he gave it all in the great exchange. And he went and he died on a cross. And he died on a cross, but 3 days later, you know, he was raised from the grave. But he sits now as master and king at the right hand of God. But do you know what he sits there with? He sits there still with holes in his hands. He still sits there with a pierced side that poured out blood for us. And if my Jesus still walks with the scars, what an invitation for me to walk with a limp. To realize my suffering is not in vain, but it's actually to make me more like my Savior. Your sickness isn't to kill you. It's to show you what life is actually like. Your broken relationship is not to crush you, but it's to show you what a healthy relationship and restoration could be. Man, could it be that the limp that you're exhausted from, that the limp that you're walking with is the very thing that is going to open the windows of heaven upon your life? Why? Because that's what our God does. So today, if you came in here with a limp, I invite you not to hide it anymore. But I invite you to walk out bold and confident that the one that started a limp in you will carry it on to completion. That you would realize your best days aren't best because it's perfect, but your best days are best because God is involved in every high and every low, and every healing and every sickness, and every win and every loss. And in everything, God is in control. And today, God doesn't just want to give you encouragement about your limp, but I believe he wants to restore your confidence in your limp. So across this room today, I'm going to invite us to stand up and receive that moment. So I'm going to invite you now across this room to stand to your feet.